So welcome to session 2 of our wellbeing workshop. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Oh, there we go. Oh, hang on. Oh, dreadful. There we go. I gave you a sneak peek there. Hopefully I didn't spoil it for you. So welcome to session 2 of our wellbeing workshops. So I'm recording this part of the practice for those of you who aren't able to make the live session today. So what we're going to be exploring is a review of our home practice. Then we're going to be moving into fatigue as a topic, some things around that, some neuroscience again, and then we'll explore some strategies. So those practical ideas and ways that you're managing your own fatigue levels. We'll then move into home practice and we'll close. So there'll be points within the session for discussion where I'll pause the recording. And for those of you accessing the session in your own time, I'll give you some prompts to have a think about. Okay. So this was the home practice. It was an average day, using the activity sheet as a guide if that was helpful or not. Noting next to each activity whether it was neutral, nourishing, or depleting. And the activities could have a mixture of responses. So this idea of being an impartial witness to ourselves, which we're going to be continuing with over this week as well. And then there was a wellbeing appointment, so carving out a specific time and day to do something for your wellbeing, that non-negotiable that you can't miss. And then the square breathing technique. So this 4 breaths in, holding for 4, breathing out, holding for 4. This rhythmic breath that activates our parasympathetic nervous systems. So what did you learn from your home practice? Now, I've got some prompts for those, for everybody, but for you at home, I want you to have a think about these questions. So, are you doing enough of what matters to you? Is there a balance of nourishing, depleting, or neutral? Are there more depleting things than nourishing? What have you learnt about that? Because that's what we are looking for, is this balance between them. Did anything surprise you? Did you remember to do the activities? Did you try the breathing technique? Did you do anything that matters to you this week? Did you keep your wellbeing appointments? If you didn't do the home practices, which is absolutely okay, how did that help your wellbeing? Saying no is a brilliant wellbeing skill. So if those activities didn't feel helpful and you said, well, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do all of these other things that I know are helpful. This is useful information. So often the home practices can feel like another thing on your list to do, and that's not what they should be. Okay. So if you said no, good for you. What was helpful about that? Was it enjoyable or disappointing? Was your wellbeing appointment actually not very nourishing, and you were interrupted, or it wasn't as fun as you thought it would be? So taking a moment to have a think about those, and you can write them down, you could put them in an email to me, you're just reflecting on your experience of that. So I'm going to pause the recording here. If I can find the button. My mug. Okay, so from this, let's move into this week's topics. So one of the take homes from the home practice is they are an invitation and you can say no to them, okay? Do what serves you. This is really important because we're learning to take care of ourselves and our well-being. And part of that is paying attention to what you don't want to do and what you do want to do. And we're trying to make lives where you're getting to do the things that matter to you. Okay, information gathering, this is what we're doing at the moment. There are always opportunities for enhancing your wellness. And we have begun by exploring current routines and establishing systems to guide you towards a fuller sense of well-being. And that is, are you doing what matters to you? So as part of the occupational therapy process, this doing, it's an activity-based intervention tool. We're integrating the important dimensions of well-being, which are emotional, environmental, intellectual, occupational, physical, social, and spiritual. So it's a holistic look. Are we doing the things that matter to us, which includes paying the tax bill? It includes our emotional well-being and the how we're spending our time and who we're spending our time with, where we're going, all these, and of course the physical experiences. So last week we focused on information gathering, and we're going to continue this exploration a little further this week. So having observed your routines, what we're looking to is balance, which I discussed a little bit within the discussion space. The most important part of our day is neutral activities. These often go unnoticed and are taken for granted until we can no longer do them or we have difficulties with them. For example, when we have a cold, we notice that we can't breathe well. But we may have missed the other 360 days of the previous year when we didn't have a runny nose. So it's like when we're wearing clothes and we've got a label that's irritating us, we notice only the label that's irritating us. Our body doesn't pay attention to the rest of the clothes that are really comfortable and warm and cozy. It doesn't go, oh, I'm so grateful that everything else isn't bothering me. It goes, this label is really bothering me, and if I don't do something about it now, I'm going to explode. So it's noticing that and sort of widening the lens of attention a little bit and saying, this is a small part of what's going on here. So looking at the bigger picture rather than just honing in on like I talked about last week with how in France there is dog poo everywhere, and if you look for it you're going to find it, or you can just say, yeah, there's dog poo there, but then wow, look at this place I get to live in. So one of the key parts of well-being is to be in the present moment, to accept ourselves as we are with kindness, and that we don't need to change. Now, we don't need to change, but in learning to be present with ourselves as we are, things change. Okay, so you're not actively changing anything, but things do, because you give yourself a break and you activate your parasympathetic nervous system. You're naturally soothed, which reduces inflammation, which helps us rest, digest, heal, all the good stuff of this part of our biology. Wanting things to be different is normal, but it can cause us immense suffering. I wish this hadn't happened. I wish this didn't happen. This is not fair. This is normal. This is how we have come to be where we are now, and how our parents and their parents survived all of these things and experiences, and here we are. Okay. So just coming back again to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this basic needs, we're ensuring that we meet them, okay? So that we can then take care of our psychological needs, so that we can then fulfill our desire, our heart's desire, to the activities, the things that matters to us. If we're not taking care of our basic needs of the food, the water, the warmth, and the rest, to feel safe and to feel secure, then it has a ripple effect on everything else. So we're establishing, by looking at our routines and our basic needs and checking that they're met, that we're not adding too much stress into our days or too little. We're providing the building blocks of our well-being. So we're going to go into a little bit more neuroscience, or what you're doing without necessarily realizing it. So with the activities that I'm prescribing and supporting you around, we're increasing our grey matter. So optimizing the functioning and growth of your brain is essential to performance and health. Now, the big part of our grey matter is done by the time that we're 8 years old. So it's not about growing anything, but it's about creating new neural pathways within what we have. So we've got grey matter and we've got white matter in our brains. And grey matter is the part of your brain that processes information and contains all the neuronal cells in your brain. For everything from emotion to sensory perception and memory, grey matter is where the action takes place. So this is where mindfulness, daily exercise, meditation, good food and adequate sleep improve your grey matter. When we're missing parts of these, we can make up for them in other areas, okay? So this is not about necessarily an equal focus on all of these things, okay? So if sleep is something that you're struggling with, then there are other things that you can be doing to support yourself, okay? Rather than this, oh, I want to sleep. Again, we'll go into that a little bit more in the sleep session, which I can bring forward to next week, I think. The more energized you are, the better your brain health. Whether it's gardening, dancing, singing, or reading, a healthy routine paves the way to a better brain health. So this is a healthy routine. You don't want too much, you don't want too little. This is like Goldilocks and the porridge. It's that just right. And we'll come into that when we're sharing around fatigue and your hints and tips around that. And white matter is the part of your brain that connects all of the grey matter nodes together. It responds mainly to a steady diet of healthy fats because the brain is made up of fats. I'm not a dietitian, but something that you could be looking at is how you are nourishing yourself. Are you eating enough omega-3 and omega-6s? It really impacts on the brain. There are many studies linking it to depression and deficiencies in minerals, and have also been can impact on sleep and things. So it sometimes there's a biological reason behind our experiences, as well as our mind kind of keeping us awake or us being tired. Yeah, so nutrition, something to think about, though not my area of expertise, as you know. Okay, so today I'm going to introduce you to the vagus nerve, which you may have heard about. Last week, we looked at the reticular activation system. So this is this filter of how we can view the world. And the vagus nerve is a part of this system. So it's the body's superpower, and it's used to counteract your fight-flight system, which is the sympathetic system. It's how you develop a healthy stress response and become resilient. When stimulated, you feel calmer, more compassionate, and clearer. When it is stimulated. Stimulating the vagus benefits your autonomic nervous system and health. Healthy vagal tone means emotional regulation, greater connection, and better physical health as well. You're more resilient and able to pull yourself through trauma and troubles. A healthy vagal tone means you're more likely to be living a successful life, apparently. In working on the vagus nerve, we use the body to support the brain rather than the brain to support the body. Stepping out of our stories and into the space of our bodies. This is a huge space that can be nothing but in the present moment. And our bodies can support us to communicate to our brains that we're safe, which then activates the parasympathetic nervous system, that then soothes us so that we feel calmer, so that we can approach life with that sort of pressing pause on stressful experiences and stepping out of them. Does this really need to be done now? Can I do it later? No, this needs to be done now, and everything else needs to be put to the side. That's sort of being able to think more clearly. So it has an interface with your heart, your lungs, and your digestive system. So when we use our parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve, we can our blood pressure is lowered, we can digest our food, our heart doesn't beat so fast, our lungs aren't breathing in that way that we're ready to run away from something. So here are some simple and quick ways of activating your vagus nerve. Humming, gargling, laughing, or singing. Now, I'm sure you have probably heard of Wim Hof by now and his cold water plunging and climbing mountains in his shorts, or Mount Everest or whatever. Doesn't need to be that extreme. An ice pack on your chest or on the back of your neck is enough to activate your vagus nerve and soothe and calm. Gratitude journaling, if you like journaling, that's one way. Writing 3 things every evening or every morning that you're grateful for switches it on. The deep breathing that you've been trying out, meditation, and simply exposing yourself to things that are beautiful. A beautiful sunset, spending time in nature, looking at pretty pictures, playing with pets, anything that brings forth positive emotions, and this is different for everyone, increases vagal tone. So doing more of those things, not necessarily doing less of the others, but adding more of this stuff in can support it and your well-being. Now, I'm introducing a new tool this week. It's called emotional literacy. So this is the ability to name and communicate your feelings. People with strong emotional literacy skills tend to have a greater awareness of both their own emotions and those of others. By naming specific emotions, we can notice them and recognize them and how they contribute to our feelings and experiences. The emotion wheel, I've attached, and I'll include a bigger document with the handouts. It's very useful for this. So it's noticing, and what we're doing, as I said, is we're gathering information, and this week we're going to be looking at what's happening in the body when we're experiencing these emotions, learning to notice, and in relation to fatigue and all other areas of well-being, learning to listen and pay attention to our bodies, because we get cues around fatigue a lot earlier from the body than we do here, but often our attention is on this, and when we reach complete burnout is when we notice that we're tired. But your body may be telling you things a bit earlier, and this is one tool that we can use to notice what's going on in the body. Learning emotional literacy, and I've got a home practice for this to help sort of pinpoint what it is. So when we're feeling angry, sad, surprised, joy, love, or fear, we can then look at, okay, so anger is an interesting one, and this is not about any emotion being good or bad. They're information. This is what we're learning. We're gathering information about our experiences. Is that anger rage, exasperation? Are you irritable, envious? Are you disgusted? And then looking beyond that, dread, hate, hostile, agitated, frustrated, annoyed, aggravated, resentful, jealous, contempt, revolted. So these kind of things can be some of the labels that you may be experiencing behind when you're feeling fatigued or frustrated or up to here with those to-do lists and all those things within your life that may be adding extra pressure. Your diagnosis, your experience with medical professionals, all these things that you're having to deal and navigate with in your environments. The bin days and all of those sorts of things that can just throw stress in for us. So what we're doing is we're learning to drop into our bodies and listen, pay attention, and notice what they are. This tool also steps us out of the story and into what's going on. And what is that? Where is that in the body? Being interested in who you are, sort of data gathering. So moving into fatigue as a general topic, this can be confused with tiredness. Everyone gets tired. It's an expected feeling after certain activities or at the end of the day. Usually we know why we're tired, and a good night's sleep will solve the problem. Fatigue is different. Fatigue is a daily lack of energy, an unusual or excessive whole body tiredness that is not relieved by sleep. It can be acute or chronic, and fatigue can have a profoundly negative impact on a person's ability to function and your quality of life. So that's fatigue in general. And then there's cancer fatigue. So you may have expected to feel tired when you have cancer, but cancer fatigue can make you too exhausted to enjoy life. This type of extreme fatigue doesn't get better with rest or sleep. Chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and other cancer treatments can make cancer fatigue worse, as can depression and stress. When we are fatigued, it is important to identify what is truly important and what can be left or outsourced to someone else or done another time. So this is where looking at your daily routines and exploring your daily life is important. It's noticing what you're doing and then pinpointing what's really important out of those things, and what am I making important but actually could be left or done by somebody else. Okay. So thinking of your personal energy stores as a bank. Deposits and withdrawals have to be made over the course of the day or the week or the month or the year to ensure a balance between energy conservation, restoration, and expenditure. So we also know that this could be around the seasons: winter, spring, summer, and autumn. So generally, the time to get things done within the year are going to be ideally spring and autumn. Winter is a time of hibernation and being quiet that we often ignore. And then the summer is a time to rest, and especially within this part of France, it's too hot to do anything. So spring and winter. So looking at the bigger picture, basically, in terms of your fatigue and your bank. Being alert to the warning signs of your fatigue: tired eyes, tired legs, whole body tiredness, stiff shoulders, decreased energy, lack of energy, inability to concentrate, weakness or malaise, boredom, lack of motivation, sleepiness, increased irritability, nervousness, anxious, impatient. So sometimes our body will be sending us these messages a lot earlier than we're picking up. So this is what we're going to be exploring a little bit more, is learning to listen and spot some cues that we're ignoring or pushing away to get things done. So as part of home practice, you'll be delighted is to keep a diary for a week to identify fatigue, when you are feeling fatigued, and what might be contributing to it, or when you've got lots of energy. And thinking we'll explore that more next week. Being alert to the signs, okay? So those little cues I mentioned before, I felt, my legs started shaking, or my eye started twitching. That's what alerted me, or I didn't even notice that was happening. And those little things. Or I feel really energized at 11 o'clock in the morning, so that's the best time to be organizing activities that require more energy. So we talked about the banking system. If you may have heard of the spoons theory, where you allocate yourself a certain amount of spoons per day and then work out how much each activity costs you in terms of your spoons or money. Or this costs, I've got 100 euros a day and this is where I'm going to spend it. Some activities will take less and some will take more. So this is an example of how that could be spent. So if you had 20 spoons in your day, it takes 1 to get out of bed, it takes 2 to walk the dog, 1 to have a shower, 2 to make breakfast or lunch, 2 to travel, 4 to do work, 2 traveling back, 3 shopping, 3 cooking dinner, and then you're done. Then it's time to go to bed. So by keeping a fatigue sort of experience of your day, you can have a look at what took all of your energy. So it might be shifting a few things around in the future. Let's move into some practical tips, okay? I've come up with 3. There were so many, and then I thought I'll do the 3 and then we'll open up to a discussion about how your tips get moving. So the last thing you may feel like doing when you're tired is exercising, but studies show that physical activity boosts energy levels. So exercise has consistently been linked to improved vigor and overall quality of life. There's says Kerry Jo Stewart, of the Professor of Medicine, blah, blah, blah. People who become active have a greater sense of self-confidence, but exercise also improves the working efficiency of your heart, lungs, and muscles. And it's the equivalent of improving the fuel efficiency of a car. It gives you more energy for any kind of activity. So exercise also activates your vagus nerve, so that parasympathetic nervous system. So get moving. Drink plenty of water. Dehydration zaps energy and impairs physical performance. Our research shows that dehydration makes it harder for athletes to complete a weightlifting workout. It's reasonable to think that dehydration causes fatigue even for people, even when we're just doing chores, even when we're just doing low level of activity. And it can also decrease alertness and concentration, so it can make activities more effortful, require more of the body if we're not drinking enough water. And you're probably very familiar with this. The best way to check is the colour of your urine. If it's darker, you need to drink more water. Obviously, this means we have to go to the toilet more. So that adds in extra stress around that. But being mindful that sometimes knowing that you've not drunk enough water is the reason for your tiredness can be helpful and soothing to know. Keep time with your body clock. So some people get a burst of energy first thing in the morning, morning larks, or some people are night owls. These individual differences in daily energy patterns are determined by brain structure and genetics. So they can be very tough to change. So if you're fighting yourself over this is the time to stop. Instead, become aware of your own circadian rhythms, and then schedule demanding activities when your energy levels are typically at their peak. So let's stop here and just move into your practical tips. So has anybody, I know last week, hang on. So from here, let's move into our well-being homework. Where is it? Okay, I'm gonna have to just go back a bit. So we moved into a short discussion around practical tips and how to how people are managing. If you have anything that you'd like to share or add in to that experience, there was a brilliant idea of not fighting it, of taking that rest, and that can take a long time to get into, and also that it doesn't necessarily need to be asleep. It can be lying down and listening to a podcast or reading a book, but resting the body is can be as nourishing as a sleep if sleep doesn't come. So your body is present, but inevitably our minds are not. It's their job to try and work everything out that's going on, and it will never get there, but it will keep trying. But our bodies can be nothing but in the present moment. So what we're exploring is learning to listen and to pay attention to our bodies and what's going on, building up that grey matter. Now, one of the first activities is this neural pathway development. So this is a grey matter building exercise. So picking one activity a day to pay particular and deliberate attention to, something like brushing your teeth or having a cup of tea. So within this, we are dropping into activating this reticular activation system. So this is what's involved: what you see, what you smell, what you taste, what colours, the sounds are, and what the textures are. So have I done that? Sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. So our 5 senses of what the experience is. So the shape of the cup, the colour, the taste, the smell. Brushing teeth is a good one, or the shower, what the smells are, what it's like having hot or cold water on the skin. Choosing one activity every day and picking the same one for 7 days. Your mind will wander off from the activity, and each time it does, you bring yourself back to what you're doing, the movements, the sounds, the colours, the textures, the temperature. The mind will go off, this is boring. You bring it back over and over. the pleasant experiences calendar. By naming specific emotions and experiences, we can notice them and recognize them, and they can contribute to our feelings and experiences. So the emotion wheel can help you with this activity. And what we're doing is we're listening to our bodies and the messages that it's sending us, and what an pleasant experience actually is like. And I will include a handout with this for you to see as an example. So we are learning to listen and pay attention to our body's language. So giving this guy a break and dropping into the space of our bodies. And then we've got the fatigue diary, which I mentioned earlier. So noting down fatigue, or when there's energy, any contributing factors. The emotion wheel may be helpful here. What helps your fatigue? What makes things worse? So being an impartial witness to yourself, like you're observing a science experiment of oh yes, I saw this person and I love seeing them and I experienced a lot of joy, but it was tiring. And as always, if anything comes up over the coming week, do reach out. So we've got the present moment awareness, so this mindfulness activity, the pleasant experiences calendar, and the fatigue diary. And hopefully that all makes sense. I'll include the pleasant experiences sheet, which gives prompts and gives you an example of what to expect. And the fatigue diary, do that in whatever way works for you. You could use the activity log that you had last week if that was helpful. So we're continuing with gathering information so that we can make informed choices for our well-being, and moving into the space of our bodies to pay attention and listen to, and giving this guy a little bit of a break. And in turn, that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, supports that vagal tone of what you need right now versus what's happened, what's going to happen. So again, yeah, any questions or queries, please do reach out. Thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure.